When I was young, I married who I thought was my soulmate, and we had 2 kids together, a daughter and a son. Unfortunately, I didn't know my wife had issues when we married. She hid it exceptionally well until a few years in. I began noticing patterns and eventually confronted her. We split when the oldest was a toddler, and she signed over custody. I know she was homeless a while after our split because her parents didn't want anything to do with her. Didn't know anything besides that. She contacted me about a year back and told me she was 3 years sober and had a stable job and a home. I checked with her family and everything, and she was telling the truth. She really wanted to meet her kids, and while I was a little upset at the her kids line, I eventually decided it wasn't my decision to make and left it up to the kids, now teens. They decided they wanted to meet her, and that was that. They've been hanging out with her about twice a week, and I let her come over for dinner almost every night. No sleepovers at her place as of now. So far, they've kind of had an auntish relationship with her, but they do seem to be enjoying it. Which brings me to our conflict. I am far from a great dad, but I honestly believe I'm a good one. I've built trust with my kids through therapy and heart-to-heart conversations over the years. They're fairly popular at their school, and they recently got invited to a party that I gave them the go-ahead to go. I've spoken to them about the dangers of alcohol, etc., and they know I'm always available to pick them up in a situation they don't want to be in. They also understand why their mother and I split up. My kids came home around 11 p.m. and just gave me the teen type of rundown, like who was there, they couldn't believe who did what, blah, blah, blah. They were also honest with me and told me they tried Jell-O shots, which they thought were gross. That was the end of that. They weren't intoxicated. They weren't even buzzed. They tried a drink and that was that. They were there for 2 hours and came home. Well, I guess they brought up the party in front of their mother at the following breakfast meetup. She was livid. She tried to ground them from electronics and socializing for 2 weeks. They said it was really awkward and asked me to pick them up without much of the details. While they were waiting in the car, I spoke to her, and when she told me, I honestly laughed. I asked her what gave her the right. She responded that she really wanted to be a mother to her kids, and that I should give her a chance to parent, and that she's giving 100% to this to make it work. I told her it was too late for that. The kids are basically adults, have part-time jobs, pay for their phone bills, clothes by choice, and they're deep into their plans for adulthood. She then told me I was robbing her of a chance to make things right and asked what was the point of letting her into their lives if I wasn't letting her be a mom. We needed to be a team because she needed my support. And here's where I might be the idiot. I told her the kids were well past that age of asking me why mommy doesn't love them when crawling into my bed at night, and that she was welcome to leave again. And as far as being a team, the only team is me and my kids. I'm their parent. They listen to me and respect me because I've listened to and respected them their whole lives. We've not spoken since then, going on a week and a half. She still texted the kids good morning and good night messages, but has skipped 2 meetups they usually have. So am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Even if you weren't the perfect parent, you were there. She missed their childhoods. Sadly, they no longer need a mother. There's nothing you can do to change that part. Think of it this way. This was the equivalent of your neighbor trying to ground them for something. Kids grow out of needing parenting, just the reality of the situation. It's unfortunate, but time and kids do not wait. The ship has sailed. She may have had some affectionate relationship with them, but she will never be able to discipline them according to her values. She's expecting credit for running a marathon, having turned up at the 22nd mile. She built this up. She had a fantasy in her head, and you've shown a spotlight on the cracks. You're the victim of misplaced feelings. Agreed. She needs to know her place. It's great that she got clean, but she missed out on their entire childhood. She now needs to accept she won't have that mother-kid relationship with them like she wants. She needs to understand that, to become their mother in more than biology and name, she needs to build and maintain a relationship with them from scratch. That means things like discipline are not her purview. Their relationship is still in the infant stage. I, 31 female, have had my cat, Sally, since I was 18. I found her as a kitten outside my college dorm. We've been together since. I also have a daughter, pre-tween, who loves Sally too. I met her father through Sally. He worked at the pet store when I first got her. I never owned a cat before, so I ended up asking a lot of questions. He gave me his number and the rest was history. We were engaged and planned to get married after my daughter was born. He died in a crash when I was 7 months pregnant. It was the darkest period of my life. Without Sally, I don't think I'd still be alive today. The problem is my current boyfriend. I had no desire to date for a long time after my fiance's death. I was devoted to my daughter and cat. Then around a year and a half ago, I met Jeff, 34 male, at a party. We started chatting and had a lot in common. I explained my past to him and told him my daughter was my priority. He said he understood because he's a dad to a boy with his ex. On our first date, I showed him a picture of my daughter holding my cat and told him all about Sally. He just said that she was very cute. We began to get serious. I could see a future with him. 2 months ago, we met each other's kids at the park. We all got along great, so I was happy. Then he stayed the night at my house for the first time a couple of weeks ago. He had never been inside my house for more than 30 seconds. My daughter was gone for the weekend, and his son was with his ex. He suggested that we have a relaxing weekend to ourselves, and he came to my house. Within half an hour of him being here, he was sick. His face was red and leaky. He had a nasty rash and some trouble breathing. He then told me he's been severely allergic to cats since childhood. We left to go to his house. I asked why he hadn't told me about his allergy before. He said he hadn't been around cats for a while and hoped his allergy had faded over the years. He said he'd still like to stay at my house sometime, and I questioned how we'd do that with Sally. Immediately, he said, "Just have your mom take it or drop it off at a shelter." I told him that I would never get rid of Sally. He was hurt that I'd choose just some cat over his comfort in my home. Plus, my mom loves Sally, so I'd still be able to see her if she stayed at her house. The argument escalated. He was mad and made a weird comment about how I keep my cat only because of my dead fiance, that I'm having an emotional affair with some dead guy. He said Sally's old and will die soon anyway, so it doesn't matter. She's still very healthy. He'd been so kind and understanding before. I was caught off guard and hurt. I broke up with him. My mom got upset about how I'd ruin everything. She's wanted me to find a new boyfriend since my fiance's death. My friends have been saying I shouldn't have ended things over this and made a compromise with him. The negative feedback has made me wonder if I was too harsh. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Someone who's okay with just dropping a pet that person has had for over a decade at a shelter so callously shows the side of a person I wouldn't be interested in dating, especially not the way he automatically went to an emotional affair so quickly. It makes me think he may also have problems with a man's child down the road as well. Also, OP, you should have had a conversation with your mom. Jeff showed some red flags, and the fact that your mom's okay with it just so you have a man is concerning. And like it's her daughter's pet too. He has a kid, yet he can't see how horrifying it is to suggest dropping off a beloved child's pet at the shelter. If I was in OP's friend circle, I'd be writing at dawn. I can't believe she has friends who think she overreacted. If anything, she underreacted. I'd be trying to figure out how to get cat hair in his car. I like you. You're my kind of petty. He said just have your mom take it or drop it off at the shelter? Eat crap, sir. I don't know why your mom and friends think a guy who would want you to get rid of your cat for him is worth even a second of your time. The lack of empathy in that sentence alone is enough to run for the hills. It's not just about the cat. It's about how he doesn't see it as a living being. My 42 male, wife's 40 family is Mexican, and they follow a tradition of holding a big party for girls who are turning 15. It's called a quinceañera. This wasn't a part of my culture, and I never understood the point of spending so much money on a party anyway. But we did save up for a while to throw my daughter one, until my daughter herself said a few months ago that she doesn't want a party and would prefer to spend that money on a trip. It'll be a 30-day supervised tour to Europe with a group of teenagers, including some school friends. Here's the thing. My daughter has a twin brother. Of course, my son wouldn't get a quinceañera, even though they celebrate their birthday on the same day, because the party is just for girls. But since the party turned into a birthday trip, he's upset and feeling left out. I tried to explain to him that I'm not so financially comfortable right now to send both of them. I could find a way, but I honestly don't want to spend anything beyond the quinceañera fund. He lashed out and told me his mother and I always favor his sister over him, which is very unfair. I then told him my father never paid for any of my trips, and the first time I went abroad, I was already an adult and did it with my own money. If that's what he wants, I suggested he could maybe look for a job. I get that I was harsh, but his sense of entitlement threw me off. Am I the idiot for agreeing to the trip aware that he'd stay behind? You are the idiot. It's not his fault there's a tradition catered to women. He's also celebrating a birthday and deserves to be recognized. How can you send her on an extravagant trip and say he's entitled to want the same? Send one kid or send neither. That's hugely unfair to him. Why does she get money and a trip, and he has to get a job? That's not even logical. Easy way to understand the problem. The money was for the tradition, not the daughter. If she doesn't want the tradition, that money should be split between the two, either for a college fund or for whatever, but split it, as it's not cultural anymore. This is how you show love and devotion to both of your children. Dude, you think spending money on a party is wasteful, so you decide to send your daughter on a month-long trip instead? You tried to explain to your son that you couldn't afford to send him on holiday as well? Then say you actually can't afford it. You just don't want to. Then you suggest an underage child gets a job if he wants to be treated equally to his sister. Your annoyance at your son's sense of entitlement is comical, as he's rightfully entitled to equality. Despite all this, you think his assertion that you favor his sister is unfair when your whole story details how you favor his sister. Are you doing anything special for your son's birthday at all? At least just the one day when it's his actual birthday? Not the 364 days your daughter's getting. If your favoritism is this obvious to strangers, I feel really bad for your son. My boyfriend, 28, and I, 27 female, have been dating for 3 years. I'm a physical therapist and he's in residency for internal med, which will last 4 to 6 years, depending on what he wants to specialize in. We met in college while he was in med school and I was in the PT graduate program. He's in year 1 and his salary is barely enough to cover the rent. The rent is $2,600 for the both of us and $1,300 a person, not including utilities. It's expensive because we have to live near the hospital, as he has to call sometimes. With food, car insurance, gas, etc., he's just making it. And with interest rates on his student loans, he doesn't want to take more out to live. I make over double what he does, and he wants me to cover most of the rent. But I feel hesitant because he says he doesn't want to get married until he's done residency and becomes a fully qualified doctor. We've been dating for 3 years and living together for over 2, and I feel like waiting 3 to 5 more years to get married is way too long. He says it's because he can't marry me with so many loans, but I have a lot of loans as well. Not as much as him, but it's not like we both don't have a lot of student loan debt. I also just started making this much money and have been putting in lump sums to pay off my student loans. I just feel like if he's going to wait so long, he probably isn't sure about this relationship. And I don't want to pay into a relationship he doesn't feel confident enough about to go further in. I told him I don't want to pay more towards rent until marriage, and he's accusing me of pushing him before he's ready. I've dropped the topic of marriage, but he keeps pushing for me to cover more rent, saying if I'm not willing, how can he consider the relationship serious enough for marriage? We also want kids, and I don't want them out of wedlock. So in 3 to 5 years, I'll be 30 to 32 before we even try for a child. I'm not saying we'll have one now, it's too early, but I'm not sure this timeline works for me, especially since we've been dating for 3 years. But he thinks I should cover more, even if we weren't serious enough for marriage, since I make more. Not the idiot. I'm sure you know all the "I put you through med school and you dumped me after you're making the big bucks" stories. I'm not saying your boyfriend is one of those, but you'd be silly to ignore the phenomenon. What would he be doing if he was single? Asking a roommate to pay more? He would only ask a girlfriend. He obviously needs you to subsidize his life, but won't give you any security in return. His job requires living in a high-rent area, so he's close enough for on-call, but he wants you to subsidize his convenience, yet doesn't want to talk about marriage after being together this long. If money's the problem, most folks would look for something cheaper, but apparently only he gets to be cheap. There are many stories about people who helped their partner during studies, residency, or internship, just to be abandoned when their partners no longer needed their help. This is a popular scheme. You have the right to protect yourself. Can't marry you because I have loans is a bizarre notion. What, will those loans disappear once he becomes a fully licensed doctor? No, he'll have them for years and years. Honey, he won't marry you because he's already reaping the rewards, meaning he has no more benefits to gain with marriage. Cut your losses and move on. My wife, Danielle, 33, has a job that requires her to go into the office every day. I, 42, work from my home office. We have 2 little children. We had a nanny, Esme, who we hired after we moved to this city for my wife's job. We do not have family in this city. Esme's been with us since we got here 6 months ago. She was excellent at her job and a pleasant person in general. Danielle got it into her head that Esme would try and get me away from her. She fired her. It was a ridiculous assertion. I love my wife, but she insisted. She then proceeded to kibosh any nanny that the agency sent, even the male one, because she thought it was weird to have a male nanny. She wants me to watch the kids since I'm home anyway. I said that no way that was happening. I bring home 65% of our income. I cannot watch the kids and work. I've dealt with this temporarily by inviting my parents to stay with us so they can watch the kids. Danielle hates this. She likes my folks, but doesn't like having them here 100% of the time. However, neither her mom nor dad are able to help. I told her that if she wanted my parents to go home, she either had to replace our nanny or stay home to watch the kids. She says I'm an idiot for devaluing her work and expecting her to watch the kids because she's the woman. I'm not. She created this situation, and it's her responsibility to deal with it. Edit. We're on a waiting list for daycare. It can be a year or more. Not the idiot. She's absurd. Her jealousy and insecurities created this problem. It's fine if she doesn't want to stay at home, but she can't expect you to somehow both work and parent 2 children simultaneously because she doesn't like either your parents or any nanny. OP, you know that the nanny isn't the issue. There isn't productive communication before large decisions, and you solved it. But she doesn't like this either. Therapy? A vacation? I don't know. But if you don't start making decisions as a team, and she doesn't figure out what's making her so insecure that she can't have a nanny, male or female, then this will only get worse. Did she cheat? Did you? Is there a reason for this? If not, this is probably a pattern of behavior, and you need to get to the root of it together. People can be that insecure. The fact that she's rejecting every potential avenue and wants him to watch the kids, thus having to cut back on his work, suggests that she wants him to be more dependent on her to make her feel important and irreplaceable to him. It's more of the makings of financial abuse than cheating to me.